Okay, so there's my bio. So hopefully everyone's familiar with me by now. Local architect and historian, written various books. I can just get this going. There we go. It's my, there you go. Some of the books that I have written.
Oh.
And I have some after this to distribute. Okay, today's talk is on lost landmarks of Louisville. There's a landmark on this photograph. Do y'all know what the landmark is that's no longer there?
Is that the water fountain?
It's the Falls Fountain. That's
The
correct.
fountain, yeah.
So we'll talk about that later. So Louisville's had many beautiful buildings. We still do. The Water Tower, Levy Building, City Hall, Science Center. But we've also lost a lot of nice buildings as well.
What is that purple one?
So I'll keep moving along. And we'll, this is a view of downtown in 1954. 1960s, and you'll start noticing more and more surface parking lots. This is a view of downtown Louisville. Everything in yellow there has been demolished that you see there. Here's a good example. This is on West Main Street, and you look at those buildings that I've circled right there, and you'll see, so this was back in the 1860s what West Main Street once looked like. This is West Main Street, that same view in the 1920s. There's those same buildings I highlighted earlier. And this is what it looks like now in 2023. So those buildings are still there, but all the other buildings pretty much around them have changed.
Are those mostly apartments?
Oh, these are office buildings. They're
Oh,
mainly offices in downtown. So this is known as the Border Trade Building. It was a commerce building in downtown Louisville at the 3rd and West Main Street. It was demolished back in 1973, and they saved the facade of the building, the very front. They had hoped to reassemble that facade later on, but as you can tell, they were stored in a lot off of River Road on the east end of downtown, and so they just pretty much piled everything up. And here's what replaced them, this office building here in downtown. But it's such a beautiful building, they saved the facade, and then they unable to reinstall it. This was known as the Washington or Lincoln Building, depending on how you want to name it. It was at the northeast corner of 4th and West Market, a very beautiful building, very ornate, decorative building.
That one too?
This is what replaced it. It was a bank building.
Oh, yeah.
So this was demolished in 1974 and replaced with this modern building, if you will. To me, this modern building was built, it was a bank building, it was built like a fortress. It had a moat around it, if y'all have ever seen it in downtown Louisville. It was originally known as the Great Financial Federal Building, but it had a moat, it had like drawbridges to get inside, it had turrets with it, very fortress, sort of anti-person type of building that it was. Very unlike the building that it replaced. Now then, just recently, this old bank building was renovated. They took off the skin of it and started renovating it here, as you can tell. And today it's called Derby City Gaming. It's where they have all those like slot machine game, casino type gaming in downtown Louisville. Me and my wife just went to it just the other day just to look at it, and it's interesting, but I don't think it matches what it ultimately replaced. But anyways, Derby City Gaming is there now. Here's a beautiful theater building. I was talking about we lost a lot of beautiful theater buildings. It was built in 1915, demoed just, 37 years later, if I'm doing my math correct. So this building only lasted 37 years.
I went there many years.
And it's now a surface parking lot.
With a parking lot.
Yeah, it's a parking lot. So this is where it once was, at the southwest corner of 5th and Muhammad Ali in downtown.
Oh.
Here it was a beautiful building. It's known as the Columbia Building, northwest corner of 4th and West Main. It's built in 1890, demoed in 1972. There's a image of it being demolished in the early 1970s. And this is the building that replaced it. Again, it's another office building, very similar to what this was. What I don't understand is why couldn't they have renovated this instead of building that? What a beautiful building for it to be demolished and then replaced with a sort of a generic style of architecture.
Yeah.
So here's a view of 4th Street. Speaking of streetcars, there's a streetcar there. As noted earlier, streetcars, the last day that they operated was on Derby Day 1948. So there's your streetcar going down, heading north on 4th. But this was the view back in about the 1940s. And that's the view today.
Ooch.
Yeah, so you went from that to that.
Wow.
So now then, one of the building that we were just looking at, this guy right here, that building is this building right here. It's the old post office. It was at 4th and Chestnut. And it was demolished in 1944. So it lasted about 54 years. And this is what was on that site there. There's a parking garage. So why would Louisville have demolished such a beautiful building in 1944? The reason why they demolished it is because they built a new post office down at 6th and Broadway. That beautiful building there. It's very beautiful, but I still would like to have them kept this. That could have easily, in today's term, we could have renovated that into a hotel or a residential use. Just a spectacular building for them to have demolished that back
Did that elevator
some
system go
80
up
years ago.
like through the tower there?
I do not know if there was an elevator in there. That was before my time. That was
Oh,
80 years ago.
Maybe they didn't have elevators.
Yeah, back 80 years ago. 1979 view of Louisville. Very colorful. Here is a picture of the Will Cells building. It was a former Courier Journal building. It was at 4th and Liberty. And it was demoed in 1980 for the Galleria. Some of y'all may remember the Galleria. It's now called 4th Street Live. And this was the original proposal for the Galleria. It had all these glass office buildings. And the Will Cells building was right here. It was proposed to be saved in the original design of the Galleria. And the Galleria was supposed to go on this surface parking lot right here, but that never happened. They ended up demolishing the Will Cells building and putting this office tower where the Will Cells was. So it's kind of unfortunate that they destroyed this historic building, and this parking lot still exists. Nothing has ever been built on that. In fact, there's that parking lot there. And so what was originally built on that surface parking lot? It was this.
Oh.
It was a hotel, a little White Castle type building, and then it was a vegetable fruit market sort of a structure. But yeah, I'd much rather have this than that.
Yeah.
Very sad. Here's a group of buildings. This was down at Main and 3rd Street. They were demolished in 1959 for a parking lot.
Oh,
So all that was demolished and a surface parking lot put there.
that's a beautiful building.
Yeah,
That's a
beautiful
lot of
building.
ways.
I'm like you, it's a beautiful building and very unfortunate.
For a parking lot.
Now some of y'all may have gone to the Rialto movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
I recall going there with my grandmother. She took me there to see several movies like The Sound of Music and some others. But just a beautiful building. And there's another view of it there. And what's there today is a parking garage. Unfortunately, when they demolished the Rialto to begin with, it was a surface parking lot for many years. And then ultimately they built this parking garage there.
Gosh.
Here is looking on Broadway. We're looking east, going east from 6th Street. And again, you have a lot of streetcars there, which no longer exist. We no longer have any streetcars. And I don't really see any motorcycle cops anymore either. This was back in the 1930s. This big church building here, that was a synagogue. That's what that view looks like today. So I'll kind of show it to you there. So the big office building that you see at the far end there, that's the Hayburn office building, and that is it right there. So unfortunately, we lost a lot of nice buildings in the process there.
Yeah.
Here's another view similar to that,
Civic church.
and that's what it's looking like today. Yeah, that was a church right there. That was the old Warren Memorial Church. No longer
It was
exists.
on Broadway, wasn't it?
Correct. It's on Broadway looking east on 5th Street. The Brown Hotel there on the left.
Yeah.
And again, this is that same view today, and there's the Brown Hotel. That one church is long gone. The Greyhound bus station is gone. Does anyone remember going through the old Greyhound bus station?
Oh,
I don't recall. It was gone by the time I started using Greyhound to go up to college. But here's an interesting juxtaposition of old and new, then and now. This is looking south from 9th Street. This is what it looked like back in the 1920s. You can see all the buildings that were there. And then urban renewal came along and took out all of that, demolished everything.
Were some of those private homes or?
Oh yeah, apartments, homes, a beautiful church, which was right there. That's the old St. Mary's Catholic Church that's there. In fact, this was all a African-American district as well. This was their business district, the African-Americans, and then we wiped all of that out. It just really, we call this now the 9th Street Divide. It's right there, this huge boulevard. So here's an aerial view looking at down on downtown. This was back in the 1950s, view of downtown Louisville. Everything in yellow has been demolished, as you see there.
Oh my goodness.
I'll look at, you can look at that again. Yeah, everything in yellow has been demolished.
Were those homes or
They were all office buildings and
office buildings?
yeah, commercial structures. That's downtown. And there's what's downtown now. I'll just kind of go back a little bit. The convention center, which was right here, that is the convention center. There's Jefferson County Courthouse. The Jefferson County Courthouse is right there, so the convention center is off to that side. But yeah, all that's pretty much new in downtown. Here are some of the beautiful buildings that we've lost along the way.
Wow.
Some of these I've already talked about, like the Columbia, the Board of Trade, and the Rialto. But we've lost a lot of
The one
beautiful.
up on the corner, the
beautiful-
right hand, up on the right hand side, that one right at the end, what was that?
Well, this is the Courier Journal Will Sales building, and that's the Greyhound.
Yeah, it was the Courier Journal.
Here was a article that was in the Courier Journal in 1979, basically lamenting everything that was happening, talking about all the destruction that was going on with all of the beautiful buildings in downtown. So this was July of 1979, talking about some history doesn't repeat, about all the beautiful buildings that we lost in that time period. Here was another article. This was back, this article I think was in the 1960s, when this was written, talking about the landmarks being demolished. And here's one of them. This was known as the Ford Mansion. It was down at 2nd and Broadway, and all that was left of it was just a front porch right there after they demolished it.
Did they demolish that too?
Yeah, everything, yeah, it's all gone. And there is an office building there today, but it's not as very, its design is pretty generic. So this is looking at downtown Louisville in 1900, so this was 123 years ago. And you can see all the dark areas that you see there are buildings. That's where buildings once were. So everything that's in black represents buildings back in 1900. Here's that same view in 1990. So 90 years later, You see all the white spaces that are there? All those buildings had been demolished. So you can see there in 1900, 1990. See how much we've lost as far as the structures were concerned. I estimate that we've lost billions of dollars in viable property by demolishing all these buildings. We've lost a lot of money during that process. So here is Broadway, and we're looking east on Brook Street. So Brook Street would be here in the foreground. This is Broadway, and that's that same view today. So you can kind of get a glimpse of how things have changed.
I wonder, have you ever talked to some of the people that helped to demolish those buildings?
The people that demolished all these, they had good intentions. When they demoed these buildings, they were doing, when you read what they were doing, they were making the city all new, it's going to be a great building. The problem that where they went wrong is they did not they did not have a vision to replace those buildings. Once they demolished them, they didn't have a plan to replace them. And I'll discuss that in just a second. I'll explain what I mean by replacing the buildings. But yeah, they thought they were doing great by demolishing them, but they didn't achieve their task of rebuilding, if you will, once they demolished. So here's a good example. So there's that same photograph there. And so we were able to save that church there. That's old St. Paul's Church down at Brook and Broadway. In fact, they wanted to demolish that back in 1995, and I actually was part of the group that helped to save that building.
Thank the good Lord.
The church congregation wanted to demolish it because they were moving out to the suburbs. And all we said, as we horrible preservationists, we just said, well, instead of just demolishing it, could you just put a sign up that says for sale and see if someone wants to buy it? That's all we asked. Put a for sale sign up and see if someone will buy it. Lo and behold, a doctor's group came along, bought that old church building and turned it into a healthcare clinic. So, you know, now then there was another church right next to it. It's called the Old Broadway Methodist Church, very beautiful structure. And it was demolished in the 1950s, but it was replaced with the Easter Seals building. Some of y'all may recall the Easter Seals building there. But what really is nice is that, yeah, we lost that old church, but they tore down the Easter Seals building and they built this cancer center by Norton's back in 2010. So this is when I get into my replace a landmark with a landmark. The way I look at it, I have no problem with you tearing down a landmark historic building. Tear it down. But replace it with a building of equal or better value. Increase the value of Louisville. Don't decrease the value of Louisville by putting just a vacant lot there. So that's my philosophy on all this. So yeah, we lost this beautiful church, but we gained a beautiful cancer center. And hopefully none of y'all have to use that cancer center.
I mean, to see a beautiful building destroyed like that.
Here's another good example. The Humana building. Some of y'all, some like it, some don't. I love it. It's an old postmodern building.
Very interesting.
I used to actually work in the Humana building. I worked for Humana for about 10 years. Beautiful building, but you know what it replaced? That building. So yeah, we lost this structure, which is it's an okay, nice historic structure, but we gained an even better building when it was replaced. And so again, replace a landmark with a landmark. There's my terminology there. Here's another good example. They wanted to tear down the Brindley Hardy railroad structures in downtown Louisville, but they replaced it with this nice residential structure there. So yeah, we lost an older structure, but we gained a more modern, very nice building here. This was the Strathmore building out on Bardstown Road, and they replaced it with this bank building. I really like this little bank building. I think they did a very nice job of how they did the detailing of it. They put a little clock tower there. They brought it out to the street. I think they did a nice job of how they, yeah, we hated losing a historic structure, but we gained as equal or better building out of that. Now then, here was a big example of this. Down in downtown Louisville, the southeast corner of West Jefferson and 3rd Street, they wanted to demolish a group of buildings in downtown. And we horrible preservationists said, oh, no you don't. We want to save those buildings. Now the Marriott people, the hotel people wanted to build this structure. So they came to town, they said, we're going to tear this down and we're going to build this nice structure. And we're all like going, oh, that makes sense. A very nice hotel that they were going to replace it would seem to make sense. However, what they actually built was this. As you can tell, it's not the same design as what they were proposing. We have this a lot in downtown where the developer will come in and they'll say, look at this pretty picture of what we're going to build. And once we approve that, then all things change, costs go up, other factors happen, and they usually don't build what they initially proposed. And that's what happened here with the Marriott. But fortunately, us horrible preservationists were able to save these historic structures. And even though Marriott built this on the front, they saved those structures, and you can see there they are right here. There's the Marriott behind it. And in fact, if you go on Marriott's website, that's the view of their hotel. They don't show you the backside, which is that very generic mobile home stack sort of structure there, but they show you this nice, and they feature the historic structure. So again, we were able to incorporate that landmark within the Marriott Hotel. Oh, the White Castles. I love the old porcelain White Castles. Everyone liked the porcelain White Castles. Unfortunately, we don't have too many porcelain White Castles anymore in Louisville. They tore them all down. And they replaced them with these concrete block White Castles. Somehow the sliders just don't taste the same to me.
They don't look the same, they don't taste the same.
I love the old porcelain buildings. Now, I was just in Nashville recently, and they do have some porcelain. The White Castle's still down there. But yeah, I don't care for these off-brand sort of structures that they've built. The Vogue Movie Theater, another theater building that was proposed to be demolished. Us horrible preservationists saying, well, you know, we really should save part of the Vogue, even though it's not going to be a movie theater anymore. So they were able to save the marquee, and now it's a retail store that's there for the Vogue. And they actually call it the Vogue Center. Everyone knows where the Vogue is in St. Matthews. This is 4th Street at Liberty. And there's the wheel sales building. I've mentioned that several times. That was demolished. Here's what that view looks like today. It's 4th Street Live. It's the old Galleria. I'll show that to you again. So we went from that, hustle and bustle.
Where was Stewart's?
Stewart's was farther down. Stewart's was way down the block here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was down at 4th and Walnut was its traditional name. Now it's 4th and Muhammad Ali. And they've taken the old Stewart's, and it's now an Embassy Suites hotel.
Look how many pedestrians.
Yeah, and look how they were dressed. Everyone's wearing a hat. They're like going to church. And they were so dressed up. I'm not sure if there was any special event going on here. But yeah, back in the day, did y'all used to wear white gloves and hats and carry your purse and all go downtown? And the men wore these straw hats, suits and ties. Yeah, when I first started working for Humana back in the early 1980s, we all wore suits and ties. By the time I ended with Humana, we were all in what was called business casual, golf shirts and slacks, you know. So the culture has definitely changed, not only in the buildings, but also the dress code. So there's a 4th Street Live and the Galleria there.
It doesn't have as many pedestrians.
No, it does not. And if you go down there today, you wouldn't even see these pedestrians there. It's pretty much vacated down there.
They don't have hats
So
on
the
either.
stores are closed up down there then?
Yeah, in fact, you can't even find a store, retail stores don't exist in downtown. It's pretty much restaurants and bars and taverns that are in downtown now. You know, if you go downtown to buy dress shoes or a shirt, you can't find that in downtown.
I think it'll come back.
Yeah,
They all moved to the suburbs.
that's correct. They all moved out to the
Excuse
Oxmoor
me.
and the mall. Now, here was a building that was out in this area, out in Shelbyville Road and Hubbard's Lane. It was known as Pryor's Restaurant. Did anyone ever go to Pryor's
Oh, yeah.
Restaurant?
Oh, yeah.
Remember Pryor's?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, steaks and shakes and all that. It's a beautiful, nice little building there that you see. Then it turned into Arby's. So they changed it from steaks and shakes and Pryor's to Arby's. And then they tore it all down and they made an automobile dealership out of it. So it's kind of changed there on Shelbyville Road at Hubbard's Lane. Masterson's Restaurant, some of you may remember Masterson's.
Oh, yeah,
Used to go there, they had a great buffet, I seem to recall.
very nice.
They didn't tear that down, did they?
There's what's there today.
Masterson's, yeah.
That's there today. This,
Oh, that's
it's a
great.
University of Louisville
Masterson.
complex
Oh,
that's
my
there.
God.
I think those are dormitories up above and retail down below.
Oh,
So yeah, they went from that to
wow.
that. They're at
To
the
that.
3rd and Cardinal Boulevard.
Oh, jeez.
Now, Miller's Cafeteria, did anyone ever go downtown to Miller's
Yeah, never did.
Cafeteria?
Yeah.
Very nice. In fact, that's the Miller's family there in the, it looks like a 1920s or 30s automobile. So about 20 years ago, Miller's Restaurant closed down. They tore the front of the building off that you see here, and they restored it to what it used to look like back in the 1830s.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, they did a nice job of restoring the historic building. So not everything has to be torn down to be made better.
Yeah.
If you went to the movies back in the 1970s or 80s, you probably went to the Showcase Cinemas. That was all
That's gone.
demolished, that's all gone. And what's there today?
Looks like a parking lot.
Costco.
Oh, Costco.
Costco.
Yeah.
And a Chick-fil-A. Costco there.
That's progress.
Some of y'all may recall the old Louisville clock sculpture. Do y'all remember the Louisville clock?
I don't.
That's still there, isn't it?
Oh, that's long since gone. Yeah, you had these figurines that used to race around. This was its dedication. In fact, it started just about 50 years ago. In December 1976 is when it ran its first race. And then it was taken down and stored away. Then I was with a group that helped restore it. We brought it back in 2013, and we had it installed down at Theater Square, 4th and Broadway area in downtown. We got it up and it was actually functioning, but the city did not like it there. They were going to expand the Kindred Healthcare building and all, and so it was removed again in 2015, and it's back in storage again. So the old Louisville clock, it's a beautiful structure, but it's had its ups and downs, if you will, as far as being up and then taken down. The Castleman structure, I've been involved in the Castleman for some time. It was a beautiful sculpture in the Cherokee Triangle neighborhood. Then it was heavily vandalized, and it was taken down back in 2020, I think it was taken down and put into storage. And so today, this is the Castleman here. It's actually in this city storage lot off Lexington Road, right where that little red dot is there. The statue was taken down and stored there. We hope someday to bring it back, but it's going to take some TLC, some tender loving care to make that happen.
Is the structure of the horse itself is not strong or?
No, it's still good.
It's
Yeah, the sculpture's still good. We just have to get it back
Oh.
reinstalled. So here is our King Louis XVI statue. Of course, everyone knows, I hope, that Louisville's named for King Louis XVI. The reason for that is King Louis XVI funded the American Revolution. If he didn't provide us the money to do our revolution, we would probably still be British subjects. And then back in the 1950s, the city of Montpellier, France, donated this sculpture of King Louis to us. We were a sister city of Montpellier, France. And by the way, this sculpture is actually a direct connection to King Louis XVI. His daughter commissioned that statue and had it made. So it has a direct connection to our namesake as a city. Unfortunately, it was heavily damaged during the protest of 2020 that we just had a few years ago, and they did this to it. And so the city took this down, and it's in a warehouse off 7th Street Road right now.
Oh,
Yeah, not good.
Jeez.
One other landmark sculpture piece was our Falls Fountain. It was dedicated in 1988 and removed just 10 years later in 1998. Anyone remember going down to the Ohio River and seeing that?
yes.
Yeah.
Are they going to restore it later?
No, I don't think the Falls Fountain will ever come back. Although it still exists. It's last time I saw it back in 2018, it was anchored at this boat company near New Albany. So there it is right there. You can actually, if you get on your computers and look on the aerial view of New Albany, you can actually see our old Falls Fountain. But I don't see it ever coming back or saved.
They sit there and deteriorate.
It's long gone. Back in the 1940s, they proposed tearing down our old courthouse
Oh my God.
and replacing it with this generic office building here. Fortunately, they had common sense and decided not to do that. So our courthouse, which is now known as Metro Hall, the mayor's office is right here in this corner. And fortunately, they've saved that.
No, no.
They had proposed tearing down what was known as Whiskey Row. This was the 100 block of West Main Street. I'm not sure if y'all been down to see any of this, but this is West Main Street, 2nd Street. This is 1st Street here. And they proposed tearing this down back in, let me see, when did they proposed demolishing it back about 10 years ago. And again, we horrible preservationists said, no you don't, we want to save that. People thought we were nuts. They said we were crazy. They said we were holding up progress. We shouldn't be saving this. Well, guess what? Well, then there was a major fire in 2015 when they were renovating it. There was a huge fire. There's another photograph of it when the fire was going on. But fortunately, we did save it. And it's now this beautiful, what's called Whiskey Row. It attracts visitors from around the world to come to our bourbon distilleries here in Louisville. And whenever I'm down, you know, there wasn't too many people strolling around 4th Street Live in that one photograph, but if you go down to Whiskey Row, it's packed. Those sidewalks, there's a lot of people going up and down, going into all the various nice buildings there. The Brown-Forman folks did this beautiful Old Forester distillery. If you've not had a chance to see that, it's a beautiful what they've done there. And
They weren't thinking about tearing that down, were they?
yeah, this had all been proposed to be demolished at one time,
Oh my
and we
God.
horrible preservationists were able to save it.
Oh.
And this last building here at the very end over here, this 121 Main Street, it was just renovated recently, so all of it has been completely restored.
Yeah.
Beautifully done.
Beautiful. Can you imagine tearing that down?
Yeah, they wanted to do that.
God.
The original, some of y'all may remember Bacon's department store.
Yeah.
I hope. This is one of the original Bacon department stores. This one actually was located on East Market Street. There's a McDonald's down there now in the Nulu district. And this building here was on the other side of the street from that McDonald's on East Market Street. And so we were able to save that historic structure. Here you can see it being renovated here. And that's what it looks like today. It
Looks
was
like a-
renovated into a retail and residential building.
Oh,
So they
Like a
can
fac-
do that.
looks like a facade.
No, it's very nice, yeah, it's just the way I took the photograph, but yeah, it's a beautiful building. Let me go back, you can see,
Oh, yeah.
they cut out all the windows and all, there's the facade there, so they took this dilapidated building and turned it into a beautiful residential structure. Now then, some of y'all may remember the old Byers Restaurant or Azalea, it was out on Brownsboro Road, near, in the Chenoweth Lane area. They wanted to tear this down, and I think they wanted to put a drugstore there or something like that. But again, the residents that were there, the residents came along. The residents in the area came out and they said, we don't want a drugstore or whatever here. We wanted to have a nicer building. They had over 300 people attend a neighborhood meeting as to what to do when they were going to demolish this Azalea restaurant. And what's there today is known as the Mesh Restaurant. I'm not sure if y'all have been to Mesh Restaurant, but it's very ultra modern, very nice menu. Me and my wife go here a lot to Mesh. It's a very modern design. It's depending on your taste in architecture, you may like it, may not, but the interior is very well done. So they went from this sort of older structure to a more modern structure.
They were both nice.
Now, one of the other key landmarks was the Colonial Gardens in the south end of town. Did anyone ever go to the old Colonial Gardens and go dancing there? And it was an entertainment type of a structure. Then unfortunately it fell on hard times. It was this dilapidated looking building here. Then they were also wanting to tear this down and put up a drugstore as well there, or fast food. It was either fast food or a drugstore they wanted to replace that with. And the residents came out and said, no you don't, we want to save that. And you're like going, why would you try and save that in such a, you know, it looks like it's long gone, right, deteriorated? Well, here's what they did to it. They totally revamped it. It's beautiful in the exterior and the interior. It's back to being a restaurant, and they did a phenomenal job of saving this structure.
That's good.
Now then, here's Churchill Downs. I take it everyone's been out to Churchill Downs, the Kentucky Derby and all that. And what's the main feature of Churchill Downs? It's the Twin Spires, right?
Yeah.
Everyone loves the Twin Spires.
Yeah.
Well, can you see them now? They built these modern additions up that sort of dwarf the Twin Spires.
Oh,
And then they put up these light poles in front of the Twin Spires. So to me, they really have somewhat impacted negatively the appearance of those historic, iconic Twin Spires. So maybe one day they'll rework the lighting system and not have these light poles, and I'm not sure if they'll ever get rid of those additions along the sides, but yeah. In fact, I always have a lot of
The light
visitors.
poles make too much money.
That's right. I usually have friends in from out of town, and the minute they go there, they're like, oh, well, this isn't what they show on TV. They always show on TV without all this. You know, they do the photographs so you don't notice all those additions and everything. You know, my friends from out of town say, why'd you all let them to do that? So, yeah, like you say, it all comes down to money, how they want to do things. Here are some buildings that we're trying to save right now that are endangered. This building in the upper left-hand corner, it's known as Liberty Hall. It's in downtown Louisville, and the Omni Hotel people want to demolish that. And you know what they want to replace it with? A vacant lot. They do not want to build anything there. And we're like going, we already have a lot of vacant lots in downtown Louisville. Why should we create another one? So me and my preservation buddies were fighting to save that.
Who are these people that want to tear down these
Well,
buildings?
Progress.
Progress, there you go. Here, the Highlands Baptist Hospital there near the Germantown area. Did anyone get born at Highlands Baptist? There you go. Yeah, a lot of people. I was born across the street at the old St. Anthony's, which is still there. But they want to tear this down and put up some residential structures there. We'll see if that happens. And then the other one I'm trying to save right now is what's called the Old Holy Name Convent. Catholic Charities is currently in that building. Catholic Charities is getting ready to move out to another building, and they want to demolish this for another vacant lot, and we're saying, no, we can turn this back into affordable housing. And so hopefully we can save that beautiful building also. But those are currently endangered, and we should be able to know in 2024 as to what will happen there. So we've saved a lot of buildings over the past 50 or so years. Here are some of the buildings: the Fraser Museum, the High Gold facade, the old Belknap Playhouse. We moved buildings a lot. This was the Bethany Chapel out in the Pleasure Ridge Park Valley Station area, and they wanted to build a Cracker Barrel restaurant on its site where this chapel once was. And so we were able to move it from where they wanted to put that Cracker Barrel restaurant. We moved it over to the Farnsley Mormon property, and now they use it as a wedding chapel over there. And then this building here, it's called the Funk House. It's out at Tellersville Road and Tellersville Road and Hurstburn Parkway, and it's an office building now. And we were able to save it. We had to move it about half a block to get it out of the way of some progress and development, but we were able to save it. So depends on how we want to do it. Sometimes we can save it, sometimes we can move it, but we feel that it's worthwhile keeping these older buildings. Here are some more that we have saved. I'm not sure if anyone went to Old Mill High School, but we were able to save Old Mill a number of years ago. Bunch of carriage houses, residential structures. Henry Clay they wanted to demolish. Carnegie Library and Shelby Park they wanted to demolish. Old church buildings. All these at one time were proposed to be demolished, and we were able to save and
I can't believe
reuse.
they would want to tear a beautiful church down
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it happens, and we were able to make the economic, and when I talk to these folks about saving these buildings, I talk economically about the property taxes. Renovation and restoration provides more local benefit than new construction. New construction usually means you have to bring in a lot of outside materials, sometimes outside workforce. Whereas renovation usually uses the local people and the local materials. And plus they don't fill up the landfill either. When you demolish something like an old mill, can you imagine what goes into the landfill? So it's all what we call sustainable, green type of construction. And they just don't build them like this anymore. As you saw, some of the newer buildings are very not architecturally
build something like
neat.
that today.
So anyways, we were able to do all that.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Thank the good Lord.
Okay, well, any questions on any of that?
I think your preservation society is wonderful. I think
Okay,
you
well,
better get
thank
more
you.
people on there.
Well, we do our best, and it's always a struggle to save some of these buildings. And I always tell people it's a marathon. When you get involved in saving a building, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It could take years to save a building.